Breaking tonight. And pay very close attention to this, because this moment will quietly reshape North American power dynamics for years to come. The Prime Minister of Canada just stood in Beijing and announced something Washington never saw coming. Visa-free travel between Canada and China. 30 days. No paperwork. No embassy visits. No delays. Mark Carney confirmed that President Xi Jinping personally committed to granting Canadians visa-free access to China, making Canada one of fewer than 50 countries in the world with that privilege. On the surface, this looks like a tourism story. It is not. This is a strategic rupture, and American border cities are about to feel it first. Canada is home to nearly 2 million Chinese Canadians. Families, entrepreneurs, students, investors, multi-generational communities deeply connected to China. Until now, traveling back and forth meant visas, fees, waiting periods, uncertainty. That barrier just disappeared overnight. At the same time, China sends roughly 300,000 tourists to Canada every year, a number already rebounding sharply since the pandemic. Industry analysts now project that number could double within 3 years under visa-free access. But here is the detail Washington completely missed. For years, a massive share of that Canada-China travel flowed through the United States. Chinese Canadians flying via Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles. Chinese tourists landing in New York or Seattle, touring the U.S., then crossing into Canada through Buffalo, Detroit, or Vancouver. Hotels, airports, restaurants, outlet malls, rental cars, entire border economies depended on that transit traffic. And now, it's gone. Visa-free travel eliminates the U.S. bottleneck entirely. Direct Vancouver-Beijing, direct Vancouver-Shanghai, direct Toronto-Guangzhou. No U.S. immigration, no U.S. airports, no U.S. spending. 2 million Chinese Canadians now have zero reason to pass through the United States to reach China. And hundreds of thousands of Chinese tourists no longer need to route their North American trips through American cities. This isn't a slowdown. It's a permanent bypass. And it didn't happen by accident. While Donald Trump threatened tariffs, floated annexation rhetoric, and weaponized trade, Canada quietly built alternatives. While the U.S. imposed 100% tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles, Canada negotiated 6.1%. While Washington escalated confrontation, Ottawa reopened dialogue. While Trump tried pressure, Carney delivered access. This visa-free agreement is the clearest signal yet that Canada is no longer willing to let the United States act as gatekeeper between Canada and the world. And the timing couldn't be more devastating for U.S. border cities. Because 2026 isn't just any year, Canada is co-hosting the FIFA World Cup. Toronto and Vancouver will receive millions of international visitors, including tens of thousands from China. And thanks to visa-free travel, Chinese fans will fly directly into Canada, stay in Canadian hotels, spend in Canadian cities, and fly straight home. No Buffalo, no Detroit, no Seattle. This is not just lost tourism. It's lost relevance. And this is only the beginning. To understand why this visa-free deal is so dangerous for the United States, you have to look at the geography Washington stopped paying attention to. Border cities. For decades, places like Seattle, Buffalo, Detroit, and even parts of Northern California quietly lived off a role they never advertised, being the transit engine of Canada-China travel. Seattle-Tacoma International Airport became a de facto Asia gateway for Western Canada. Chinese Canadians from Vancouver regularly crossed the border to catch cheaper or more frequent long-haul flights. Hotels near SeaTac filled with Canadian travelers. Restaurants, taxis, rental cars, airport workers, all paid by cross-border traffic. That revenue stream just collapsed. With visa-free access, Vancouver becomes the dominant Pacific gateway. No paperwork, no U.S. immigration, no reason to cross the border. Seattle loses landing fees. Los Angeles loses connections. San Francisco loses transit passengers. And this loss is permanent. Now look east. Buffalo, Niagara Falls, Detroit. These cities built entire microeconomies around Canadian and Chinese tourism flows. Chinese tour groups would land in New York, visit American landmarks, then cross into Canada to see Niagara Falls from the Canadian side, Toronto, Montreal, before returning through the U.S. Hotels on the American side filled up. Outlet malls thrived. Border crossings generated constant spending. Visa-free access breaks that loop. Chinese tourists no longer need a U.S. entry point to see Canada. They fly directly into Toronto or Vancouver, stay entirely inside Canada, and leave without ever touching American soil. Buffalo doesn't get overflow. Detroit doesn't get connections. Border malls don't get shoppers. And cities have no policy tools to stop it. Visas are federal. Air routes are federal. Trade policy is federal. Local governments are collateral damage. Then there's the industry nobody talks about. Visa services. Entire ecosystems existed to process Chinese visa applications for Canadians and Chinese visas for tourists entering Canada. Many of those businesses operated in U.S. border cities, Seattle, Buffalo, Detroit, serving Canadian clients. That industry just vanished. No applications, no fees, no processing, no consultants. This is what economists call disintermediation, when an entire layer of economic activity is removed overnight. And it doesn't come back. Now layer in the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Canada is hosting. China is football-obsessed. Visa-free access removes the last friction. Chinese fans fly directly to Vancouver and Toronto, attend matches, stay longer, spend more, and return home. U.S. border cities don't even get a spillover effect. This is not cyclical, it's structural. And Washington cannot counter it. The United States cannot offer visa-free access to China under current political conditions. It cannot match China's willingness to open travel channels. It cannot force airlines to route through U.S. hubs, and it cannot threaten Canada back into dependence without accelerating the very diversification it fears. Trump believed pressure would discipline Canada. Instead, it pushed Canada into a position of independent leverage. What we are watching is not a tourism story. It's the loss of intermediary power. The United States no longer controls the gateway. Canada no longer needs permission. And once routes, infrastructure, and travel habits shift, they do not reverse. Washington didn't just lose travelers, it lost relevance. And in Part 3, you'll see why this visa-free agreement is not temporary, not symbolic, and not reversible. And why Trump has no move left to stop it. What makes this Canada-China visa-free deal so dangerous for Washington is not what happened today. It's what happens after infrastructure adjusts. Because once travel becomes frictionless, investment follows. And once investment follows, policy becomes locked in. Airlines don't add routes for politics. They add routes for demand. Air Canada is already expanding China service. Chinese carriers are increasing frequencies. New city pairs are being studied. Airport slots are allocated. Aircraft are repositioned. Marketing budgets are committed. These are multi-year decisions. Even if political relations cool, the commercial architecture remains. That's what Washington failed to model. Visa-free access is not just about convenience. It creates path dependency. Once millions of travelers experience seamless movement, any attempt to reintroduce friction becomes politically toxic and economically irrational. Now add Carney's most explosive statement. When asked whether China had become a more predictable partner than the United States, he did not dodge. He said yes, not ideologically, not emotionally, operationally. Agreements with China were honored. Commitments were implemented. Timelines were respected. By contrast, U.S. agreements changed with tweets. Tariffs appeared overnight. Threats replaced negotiations. Allies were treated as leverage points. That statement alone should have shaken Washington. A Canadian Prime Minister publicly declaring that an authoritarian state offers more predictability than America. Not because of values, but because of consistency. That is a catastrophic reputational loss, and it extends beyond tourism. Energy partnerships, agricultural exports, EV manufacturing, technology cooperation, cultural exchange. Visa-free travel is the human layer binding all of it together. 2 million Chinese Canadians can now move freely. Families reconnect. Businesses operate faster. Students explore opportunities. Cultural ties deepen. This isn't diplomacy. It's normalization. And normalization is irreversible without crisis. Trump has no counter-move. He cannot threaten tariffs. Canada diversified. He cannot threaten travel. Canada bypassed the U.S. He cannot isolate China. Canada chose engagement. He cannot reverse airline routes. He cannot reinsert the U.S. as intermediary. Every aggressive move he makes only validates Carney's strategy. That's why this moment matters. Because it proves something Washington has refused to accept. Canada no longer needs the United States as a gatekeeper to global mobility. The U.S. lost not because China outplayed it, but because Trump miscalculated Canada. He assumed pressure creates submission. It created independence. He assumed allies have no alternatives. They do. He assumed unpredictability is strength. It's poison. And now border cities are paying the price. Airports are paying the price. Local economies are paying the price. For Canada, this is sovereignty in motion. For the U.S., it's leverage evaporating. And for the rest of the world, the message is clear. There are partners who weaponize access, and there are partners who build stability. Canada chose the second path. China rewarded it. And Washington is watching influence slip away, not with a bang, but with a boarding pass.